I'm going to use this one because it kind of highlights in terms of colors. So I'm going to get rid of this. And maybe the first thing that you want to do is to write your logic, right? One of the mistakes that people make when learning to program is they just start programming, and that is a very bad habit. So don't do that. I mean, you can do that if you want, but that is not the best practice. So write down, you comment, provide some comments and layout. If it's just like 5-line program, maybe you don't need it, right? But you're writing a program. If you're writing a program for yourself, you do whatever you want, right? But if you're writing a program for someone else, for class or your manager or whoever, then you need to be able to present it in semi, a professional way, and best practice. So give it a title, and I purposely did it, maybe you don't really need that one. So what I would do is I would provide a block of comments, and you could even say, program name, and say, this is a payroll calculator, right? So do that, and then I would maybe even do that calculator, and then I would just simply do a IPO layout. So input here, I'm going to take the input of name, hours worked. That's what I need from the user, right? So you can say, and then, or you can even write it out. Let's say get name and hours worked from user, right? Whatever you want. But I think simply, for brevity and clarity, you can do name and whatever I had here, hours worked. Okay, and we would assume for now we're going to get it from a user rather than a file or some other means. And then you can say process. What am I going to, what am I going to do with it, right? So I'm going to calculate the gross pay, taxes, and the net pay. And then I'm going to output stuff to the user, or the following items: gross pay, taxes, and the net pay, right? So that's how you start, and then you kind of work your section at a time. So you can say I'm I already wrote it all out, so I'm just gonna paste it here. I'm gonna work on the inputs. So a block of code, you want to provide some comments so that you may know what you're doing, but a reader may not be able to understand. So give some kind of comment, right there, for this is what you're doing, right? And then here, as I as you learned in this week, that your input statement is going to get the input from the user, right? And then instead of using just a blank parentheses, you want to give a friendly instruction to the user as to what they're supposed to be doing, and that is please enter your first name and like that, right? And then provide a name of the variable that you're going to be using. And so I'm going to call it a first name because the person is going to enter a first name, right? The convention of this name is always use a lowercase of the first word, which is the first, and then capitalize every word that you're going to be using. I only have one word here, and it is a name, right? So I capitalize the N. And if you have more, you just keep on piling up, no spaces in between. Sometimes, people may use a underscore, but, whatever you want. They just need to be like together, not separated by space. And then I'm going to get the ask for a number of hours the person worked, and then I'm going to just get the integer. I don't want to like decimal points. I just want a integer number, and then I'm going to assign the value to a variable called hours, and I'm going to use a lowercase here, and I don't have any other items. So I'll do this, and I want to make sure that it's working, right? So maybe I will just run it. Please enter your first name. We'll say John, right? and then press enter number of hours. I'm going to say 10. And then it'll just stop. And it didn't fail in anything. If it did fail, then it is going to complain. Like if you forgot to put a one parentheses here or something like that, right? You would kind of already know, but let's say you didn't, right? So if you run it, this has already failed, right? Syntax error, unexpected, end of file. So you kind of look at it and line 13, right? There is no line 13, so it must be at the end of 12. And so you kind of go there and try to figure it out, and you kind of look at this already highlighted here, so it's going to need another parenthesis. But anyway, so you do that, and then now, so we're done with this part right here, and then now you're going to work on the process part, right? So I'm going to do some of that, and the way that I'm going to do this is right here, and I'm going to copy this. Now I'm going to, maybe I'll just use a blank space here to kind of split it out. Aesthetics do matter. The way your code looks is also important. A messy program is a problem program. So I want you to organize it well, so that it's easier to troubleshoot, right? And then I'm going to set the payroll fixed value. I'm going to set the pay rate for this person to be $30 an hour, right? And then the federal tax rate, I'm going to say it's 15%. State tax rate to be 5%, and then Social Security to be 7%. Notice that here F is lowercase, T is capital, and the R is capital convention. If you didn't do it that way, it still works, but that is the convention that people are following, and it is good to do that. So, and you can run this, right? Do that, and say St. Mary here, and then 10, and it just stops. And then, because there's no output, right? But at least you know that it is a syntactically and so a little bit logically is working. Now I need to actually do the processing to calculate. So I'm going to copy my program here, and I'm going to paste it here. So I'm going to calculate the hours that I got from the user. I'm going to multiply by the pay rate, a variable that I fixed it to be 30, and I'm going to assign it to the gross pay. To figure out the Fed amount, gross pay times the, this is a federal tax amount, maybe that's the way I should do it. But anyway, federal tax rate of 15% times the gross pay, I'm going to get the federal money away. And then the state amount would be the gross pay times the state tax rate. And then the Social Security would be the gross pay times the Social Security tax rate. This is sort of preferred and standard way, rather than using 30, 15, and 0.05, because they may change, right? The person may get a raise, federal tax rate could increase, and in other stuff as well. So rather than having to go change these actual numbers, it is preferred that we use the variable, right? And then once you got through all these calculations, your net pay would be the gross pay minus all these deductions, right? So, and you can just run it again. I'm going to say ABC. I'm going to do 10 hours, and it'll just stop. And good thing that I'm looking for no errors here. So that's all good. Now I'm going to do the output display. Put out the output. So I'm going to say here. So I'm going to output, and I'm going to display. So I'm using a whole bunch of print statements here. I'm going to say hello, and then I'm going to print out the first name that I got from the user. So that's all good. I'm going to say your gross amount is, I'm going to print out the gross pay. But notice here, within the quote, I'm using the formatting of the floater, starting with a percent, with a dot of 2 decimal point of the floating point. I'm going to do that for all of them, right? So that it'll be nicely formatted. So let's see if that works out okay. And notice here that I'm not putting a comma here when I'm using this value. So what this one does is it formats the value of this gross pay in, which will be in a floating number format to a particular decimal points, right? So there is no comma that is needed here. So let's do the test here. I can just run first name here, and I'm going to say Kim, number of hours worked. I'm just going to say 10 hours, and then I'm going to press return, and bam, so it goes and it runs and finishes. So I'm going to put this up here. Please enter your name. I put this in. I put this 10 here, and then it spits out, hello Kim, your gross amount is. It does that nicely formatted. The guy's making $30 an hour. If I work 10 hours, I'm getting a 300. That's all good. Federal 15%. That looks about right. And the state is about 5%. So that looks okay. Social Security is 10%, 21, and then you subtract all this from 300. You only get $219 that goes into your bank account, right? So it checks out pretty okay, right? So this is what how it should run, and this is a quick overview of how it can be done in one way. Now, if you were to just copy this here, turn it in, that probably wouldn't be good. So if you are going to use this, then try to change it up a little bit. You may want to change the actual name of these variables. You may want to format it a little bit differently, put some blank lines, or you may ask for the first and the last name. I don't know, but you can say congratulations, this is your take-home pay. Do some variations so that I know that you kind of played around with it. All right. So hopefully that helps you out making that leap of creating your first a real program. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.